Hey, it's Anna, and today in Movie Reviews, we're going to talk about 2001: A Space Odyssey, directed by Stanley Kubrick. And I recently watched this over the beginning of my summer break because I never really got to do so, and I heard it was a classic, so I was like, oh. And I'm a really big fan of sci-fi movies, so I thought I would be hitting the jackpot watching this. And I was actually really disappointed, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for that because whenever I tell somebody that I didn't like this movie, they're like, "But it's a classic," and it's like, yeah, but doesn't mean it's good. So, anyways, yeah, 2001: A Space Odyssey. So, let's get to it. So basically, a short summary of the movie is these two astronauts. One of them is called Clark, and the other one is called Bowman, otherwise known as David Bowman, and I think his name was Frank Clark. They're both sent into space to, I think specifically Jupiter. They're not really sure why. They're sent on a space mission with a computer named Hal, and Hal is supposed to be this sort of amazing AI built into the ship, and he's apparently supposed to be infallible, which later on you find out that's not the case. And yeah, it's about there's also the second storyline, I guess, about how humanity was made with this sort of black slab that keeps appearing everywhere. And I guess that's kind of the confusing part for me because they had two storylines, which one was man versus technology, and the other one was the discoverance of man. And the way that they just try to bring them about was just so weird. I think Hal as a character and an element was really well done, but then once he is no longer in the movie, it's kind of what happens, why? But we'll get onto that later. So I guess the pros for this film is obviously the amazing effects that were done in the 60s, which I think still today they look amazing. They look so real. I was watching a documentary on how they actually, for a lot of the zero gravity scenes, it was just the guy walking on a tightrope or something, or he was strapped on. Obviously there's no CGI, but just the fact that they did it there, it's just I think it's still amazing. It's anyways, what else? Obviously the visuals were amazing. When they were in space, when I guess Bowman goes, when he's arriving into Jupiter, and there's this whole trippy scene where he just sees all these planets, and I think he goes through a wormhole, and all just the lights, they're so beautiful. The visuals are just amazing. Like I said, it's from the 60s, so I guess you don't really expect that. And I understand why it's called a masterpiece or a classic from its time, because not all the movies did that. But something else that was a pro was, I think, just how the character himself was really well done, because this is, I guess, I'm not from the 60s, so I can't really say how people felt about I guess AIs back in the age, or this whole fear of the computer taking over, causing some sort of discord when it's meant to be something perfect. So that whole, I guess, theme of man versus technology, even though it's still prominent today, I think it's really, I think they got away with it. I think it was really well done. I think it was the only theme in the movie that made sense, and I think that's why I'm a fan of it. I think Hal's personal, I guess, development throughout the film, where he comes at something that he was supposed to be perfect, and you're not really sure why he goes wrong, or if there are some conspiracy theories, or if he's meant to go wrong. You're not really sure, but I appreciate him, I appreciate his character, and I appreciate his writing. And Sadly, when they get rid of him, the movie's not as exciting. There's something really creepy about him too, even though like he couldn't physically hurt you. Like there's something just like really creepy as like this like ominous being in the ship who like tried to kill them, got away with one. So you know how he was pretty cool. But what else? I guess like the vision of this movie in the 60s might have been what made it like a classic. And I understand that like the space and like it's just so futuristic, and like this idea of like was mankind made in space, how did we get to Earth, like the whole idea, like I respect and I understand. But then we get into the cons where I'm gonna get shit on, but let's do it. I think this movie had way too many themes going on. Once they kill Hal off, he's just dead, and like that whole like narrative of like technology versus man just kind of like goes out the window with Hal. And like now it's like this whole like trip where it's like, where did humans come from? Where did they die? What does this black wall stone thing have to do with like the creation of life? Like, I think they could have done a lot better than that, and I think just like crossing over from like their last theme to their new theme was just like too confusing. It was so like it was rushed. I think it was really rushed, and I thought it was too confusing, and I think they didn't give enough information for the viewer to, I guess, put the two of them together. I think it was really like not attached by anything. They could have done a better job in that, especially the ending where Dr. Bowman sees himself as an old man and then sees his comrade, and then like there's like a fetus in space. I'm trying, like, it's like one of those like fake deep pieces of art where you're just like, I see what you're trying to do, but you're not really grasping it. You're close, but you're not really grasping it. And I just think that the audience just gets lost. Like that whole like trip in space where Bowman finally hits Jupiter and ends up God knows where. I think visually it was very nice. It was spectacular to the eyes, but for the viewer, like you get lost too, and you're like, well, what does this have to do with anything? Like, where is this leading us? What are we gonna find out? And like we think we're gonna find out like the question that like people have been trying to like ask about, like, what is this black thing? Why is the mission so secretive? And like we get there, and like I guess like Kubrick is trying to like show us what he means to say with this without really using any dialogue, but like it's just not reaching. Like it's not reaching, and like I guess it was too minimalistic. I don't know, but yeah. So yeah. However, I do think the acting was really. The acting was good. It wasn't bad. I can't complain about it. But I just think like the plotline was just like, it just really, I think that was like the only thing that was really problematic about this movie. But it's such a big part of the movie that like I guess I was disappointed by the end, and I was like, I can't believe I wasted like 2.5 hours just like watching this just to be disappointed, you know? Like people are like, oh my god, this is so good, it's like a classic. But in reality, it's like really, it's mediocre. At least to me, like it's. If somebody remade this today with like the same visuals and everything, like it's mediocre, because we already have like tons of like sci-fi movies that like talk about like, you know, existentialism, like blah blah blah. And like I understand that like back in the age this was like new. I respect that. But as a movie overall, I think it should really be semi-timeless overall to like convey this meaning of like existentialism. So yeah, I was not really happy with it, and I would give it a 6 out of 10, and if not a 5 out of 10. But that's just my read. And I've talked to other people too who are a little bit older than me, and they're still like, I don't really understand the meaning. And I talk to people who are my age and who are like, oh yeah, you don't get it? Like, but it's a classic. So I really don't think those people get it. I think they're just saying it's a classic just to say it's a classic. But yeah, that's my read. And I hope you guys have a great day. And that was my review. Bye.